Alright. 2, 3, 4. Hi, welcome to DETUNED, and on today's show we have a special guest, fingerstyle guitarist, composer, arranger, and educator.
Yeah, man.
As-Samad. We'll set this up for you guys. Me and us used to be in the same music college together.
Indeed, we were.
I dropped out and joined the punk rock band while us continued his
He
studies.
started a movement. I went to study.
Yeah,
And-
he graduated and then he's making Malaysia proud, unlike myself.
You are Malaysia proud, man. You're doing good work. I read the stuff you guys make. It's awesome.
Thank you. Well, what's the first piece of music that got you all fired up to learn how to play a guitar?
It was actually this one. Yeah, it was like Nirvana, man. Smells like, yeah, exactly. You know it starts a movement when everyone like, I know that part. You know? It's like, it was Nirvana because you know what happened was, that was Smells Like Teen Spirit. What happened was before that I was listening to R&B and hip hop. You know, when I was like 12 or something, I was listening to PLC, Chris Cross, then the pop stuff. You know, like For You to See, KRU. Then I went into gangster rap. I listened to Snoop Doggy Dogg, Warren G. I was really into like the whole R&B, Boyz II Men, Joe Jodeci. Went deep into that, and then there was this girl. She told me about Nirvana. It was on a phone call because that time like you don't go like, I didn't go like on like I don't know MSN Messenger or whatever the equivalent ICQ or.
Yeah.
So she told me about this band Nirvana and I bought the cassette, Unplugged in New York, and it was just like whoa, this is completely different. Everything was a bit edgy. If you listen to R&B, everything's very produced. It sounds very clean.
R&B back in the 90s.
The 90s, yeah. It's very like kind of like everything sounds very sweet. You know, everything's at the right place. You listen to Brandy, Monica, everything's like minimal at that time and polite. Well, not polite. It's just like very sweet sounding. And then I listened to Nirvana. I was like, wow, everything's like rough in the edges, and it was attractive. And then I got so it started with Unplugged in New York. And then I got the Nevermind album. And when I got that, I was like, wow, this is just like mind-blowingly cool.
So how did that happen from like rock, grunge, Nirvana to fingerstyle? Because like that seems like two polar opposites of the guitar.
It would seem, and it's true. So I started, I got a kapok guitar from Spectrum Shopping Mall, 80 ringgit, as all we all did. Blue Sunburst, I still have it.
Do they still make kapoks anymore?
They do, and you know what? If you Google online, right, they actually make high-end ones now. Because I was curious about it, so I Googled, and they have like higher-end ones, but I don't associate them with that. I associate to 80 to 200 ringgit, anyone can buy. But anyways, so the story was, I played for 3 months. I was trying to learn how to play Beatles tunes and stuff like that. And my dad basically just said, you know, if you learn classical guitar, I will buy you a nicer guitar. So 16, right? You're like, sure, I'll learn classical. And he told me he asked me to learn to read music. That was part of the deal. So I said, okay, I'll learn to read music. And that's how I started. I started playing classical guitar, and that was the beginnings of the whole fingerstyle thing. Because I was trying. Eventually, I went on to play stuff like. Like classical pieces, stuff like. And then, this kind.
Vanessa Mae.
Yeah, I know Vanessa Mae, Tommy Emmanuel. I mean, that's the era, right? Around that time. I mean, you remember Genevieve, Genevieve. Yeah, so she played violin, stuff like that. We never did that piece together though. But so I started classical, and that was the beginning of it. And I was still very much into grunge and rock, but I was formally trained in classical guitar, so I learned, like the whole fingerstyle technique, and that eventually led me into steel string fingerstyle guitar, which is the whole, I do a lot of percussive fingerstyle guitar stuff. So, but the gateway was learning classical guitar.
This might sound like a silly question, but it has to do with fingerstyle playing.
Okay.
How long do your fingers need to be
or
play fingerstyle because like the classical guitar's neck is usually thick.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, it might seem like a silly question, but how long do your fingers need to be, and like, do you need to have them, you know, claws?
Like what, the nails and
Yeah,
stuff?
yeah.
Well, funny trivia. I found out at some point. I found out that my left hand is actually longer. The fingers are actually longer than the right hand because something like that. But even if I put it like this, right, like at the same point, it's still kind of. You see the nails? It's like the nail is actually getting it the same, but it's still a bit longer. I don't know whether this has to do with me playing guitar and stretching. I can't be sure because I never noticed that when I started because you don't check, you don't know yet. Does it have to be long? I think it helps, but some of my teachers like Eric Roach, he had really short fingers and he played fine. He played classical, he played fingerstyle. So I don't think it's about the length of the fingers.
You have long fingers.
I do have long fingers. I must say it's an advantage. It's okay. Let's do this. Yeah, so it is. Yeah. So it is. It's good for us. Okay, when I play classical, there's sometimes you get these kind of chords, which are. Let's put this there. Okay, so stuff like this. Or when you have.
That's a stretch.
Yeah, it's a stretch. It's a pretty wide stretch. And then there was one in Romanziamo. Sorry. Very early on, when I played that, I was like, wow, that's a stretch. And so things like that, it was helpful. But one thing I realized early on, when having longer fingers, is actually easier for rock. When you play the Hendrix stuff, when you do stuff like, that kind of stuff, because the thumb can reach over the neck. That to me is kind of, if you do the bar chord, it's harder to get that sound because you can't sustain the bass note. So I found that really useful. I like that sound a lot. Yeah. So do you need long fingers for fingerstyle? Not necessarily, but if you happen to, it helps with classical guitar necks or wide stretches. It does help.
So how many fingerstyle techniques do you know, or would you say you have mastered?
I would say I've explored a lot of different ones, so I can sort of give, I guess, kind of a survey. One style that, one of it is this one. Like, if you listen to Brazilian music, there's bossa nova, and that's kind of a style on its own. It's this kind of thing. So the bass is doing this 1, 2, 3, 4. Brazilians would say 1, 2, and then there's a chord part that goes on top. But if you listen to the bass, it's very steady. So this is kind of nice. And then there's also an extension of it, or like a different style like samba and partido alto. It has this kind of. So this is kind of one style. There's the Chet Atkins style, which is the boom chick thing that Tommy Emmanuel does a lot more. And it's actually nicer with a thumb pick. I don't really play with a thumb pick, but you can hear the difference. If I use my flash right, it's okay, but if you had a thumb pick or a pick, and then the
So that's very country.
it's very country, and it's like Chet Atkins, Merle Travis. I don't really play that style so much, but when I started off, I was exploring it a little bit, with Tommy Emmanuel. There's one that I kind of like, and I go off and on. I just explore it, like finger picking blues. So this one, they call it monotonic style bass. So the bass is just on one, and you're trying to keep.
Oh yeah. I usually have this problem because my hand can't. I don't know.
Can't keep the. You're actually playing a more complicated one. The thing is, right, the style, right, it's, the bass is just like, so it's just like one. So the hard part is trying to keep this going. And then you add the, let's say on the one, then change to the chord to the. So the bass is actually, yeah, exactly, man. And then I would switch, you know, this means I switch the bass notes here. I'm switching to the fifth. And then eventually when you go to the 5 chord, B, like B7, then A, and then E. Yeah, the hard part is trying to keep this like going. So it's like the pulse. And then, so when you start off, you could do like 1, or you could do 1, 2, 3. So you're kind of layering it on top. So this is just very steady.
Right.
But it makes it sound very complicated when you have like.
Do you feel like all the pianists are laughing at us when we guitarists play and we say we have things like problems with our rhythm?
I think, you know, any pianist who's tried playing guitar will immediately go back to playing piano. Because on the piano, it's a very visual thing. The bass is doing it. I mean, it's not easy, it's hard. But it's very clear. On the guitar, you have this problem that everything's like the same place. So on one hand, I could play, let's say, an E chord, and then I could be like, you know, do something very folky and you know, Damien Rice or something like that. On the other hand, I could keep the same chord and then, or I could do, you see what I mean? So it's like this one chord shape, but everything that happens here can change, or you could do stuff like, which is very different than, like, you know. If I was,
that's my typical strum. That's my strumming
I
pattern.
was doing that in tribute of you, man. Because like, you know, because it's a style, right? I mean, because you'd be like going up, something like that, and it's a certain kind of vibe. But if you were doing kind of a more folky thing, they would separate it with the bass and the chords, which is kind of cool because they do, you know, like Dylan or something, he'll be like here and people play G.
How many
that kind of thing, right? So there's a bit of separation there. And just by separating it, it becomes folk. If you do the whole thing, it's like, you know, acoustic punk rock or something.
You also, well, obviously you also play with the plectrum.
I do.
Just like the rest of us normal guys.
Yeah, I do. You know,
does playing with the plectrum too long affect your fingerstyle playing?
You know what? I'll show you how. Okay, I'll show you the big story here. This is how many picks I have.
Okay.
It's like, so I have a lot of picks. And they will fall. Yeah. So it's just like a lot of different kinds, but I've been really, the past few years I've been kind of exploring it. It's a tone thing, and I'll show you what I mean. So I use a really thin one when I'm trying to do like folky stuff, or like chords, right? So I use a thin, like Fender thin, and then you get this kind of sound. So it has a certain kind of sound. Now if I use it's so thin, it will fly off. But if I use something like this one's like a Dunlop 2.0, which is super thick, and if I use the same for the same thing, it's too aggressive. It doesn't sound so sweet. The thin one works better. Which is why a lot of people who start off playing acoustic, they always use a thin pick. But it's a great sound. But there's kind of 3 different picking styles that I'm quite curious about now, and I'll kind of demonstrate. So one that I've been exploring, I'm using Fender mediums, and I use the rounded side here to get this kind of sound for jazz. If I use the flat side, it's very thin, so I use this thing called edge picking. I angle it a bit, and you kind of cutting through the string rather than flat.
So kind of like a harmonic?
Not well. If you do it on electric and you dig in, it'll be pinch harmonic.
It's a pinch harmonic.
Yeah, it's like a pinch harmonic kind of thing. But you hear the sound. If I play it flat, it's very thin. But the jazz thing, they want a warm sound. That kind of thing. Now, so that's one kind of sound. So if I use the pointy side and I played it flat. Yeah, sharper. Even if I angle it, if I use the rounded side, it's just a different kind of sound. So that's one kind of thing. I call this site. I saw it from Barry Green, who's a jazz guitarist. He's from the States. He does this Facebook Live thing. So he plays with this rounded side. A lot of jazzers do that. Even funk guitarists, they do that as well. And then there's another style that I like, which is actually I use the same pick. It's like from this angle, which is very weird if you've never seen it, but it's Benson style. And if I play all three back to back, you're gonna hear if it's flat, it sound like that. If you do it from here, this is the Barry Green. So the sound has changed. And if I do this, I'm coming from this side, and I'm using the pointy side this time. Check it out. Now again the flat side, and the Barry Green one is nice, but the Benson one is crazy.
It's like more tone to
Yeah,
it.
and there's more attack. And this one, I learned this from, I was taking Skype lessons with Tuck Andrus, who's playing with Tuck and Patty, and he has a long article about this on his website. So I was
Yeah, like guitar.